bombs, and that was like you were the Unabomber.
No, I'm still working on the manifesto side of
Okay.
this before we get there. All right, go ahead.
But if you could lose yourself, in the making the explosives, or it could be anything, right?
Yeah.
I've often dreamed of
Yeah.
finding an old 911, maybe
Okay.
something from the 70s that needed work,
Yes,
and I would
project
buy
car.
it.
Do
and
not
I would,
do this.
I would take.
Do not. I'm telling you, no. Do not do this. Good
I would work
fantasy. Leave it alone.
Well, it's a
All right.
fantasy because I know nothing about cars,
Right.
but it'd just be cool.
I know a few things, and I'm saying no. Do not
just-
run the other way.
Because someone has I don't know how much of it. It may just be the actual shell of a 911.
Right, yeah, most
Someone
of
in my
it's-
neighbor has one, and they have it under a tarp, and for years it's never moved.
Oh yeah.
And I wanted to say, how much do you want for that, man? But because if I got it, then it would sit in the tarp for years.
Let me just say, lift up the tarp and see if there's a motor, a transmission, seats,
I don't think there is.
tires, anything else.
I think it's
on this.
literally just a shell.
It's just a shell.
Because probably the engine is the thing that's going to cause the most trouble and cost the most. Right? Am I wrong? So
Yeah, you're wrong. And so what I would say at this point is, yeah, be careful of your hobbies. Well, I get back to the time thing. So the issue is all of a sudden time speeds up. And I look, and it's been 3 hours later. So I'm not sure how that figures in alone time. I don't need a certain amount of alone time.
that would be play. That's going on being. That's literally an example of that was the selfless state you were creating by the capacity to be alone, to generate solitude and play. Those two things in combination, solitude and play, is losing track of time while you're doing something. Gardening,
No, I don't lose track of time, and I'm watching the clock, and I'm getting out of that garden as fast as I can. That thing is a lot of work.
It
turns out.
is. Some people,
Going
though,
crazy.
literally find a great deal. I used to enjoy getting up in the morning and going out and trim the roses.
Trimming the roses.
I would, just go to snip, just trimming your rose bushes. They used to feel good
What's that?
until the neighbors, they got really
Danny
upset.
DeVito? No, that was a different movie.
That's
okay,
War of
I'm
the
sorry.
Roses.
Yeah, that was right.
But
Not
then
trimming.
the neighbors insisted I wear pants. It took the fun out of it.
Oh, there we go. Now I knew somehow you were clipping the neighbor's roses without
it.
pants. Okay, here we've been down this road a few times. All right, well, I don't know how pants affect time, but I'd say keep the pants on. So what? How can I get more of this alone time as it begins to rain here in Midland, Georgia? And
Prison.
do I need how much alone?
Prison. I think once,
No.
once you're found guilty,
I was going to write
that you may have.
If
you
I
know,
go, I'm writing a book. I know that, and I'm becoming a
Yeah,
lawyer.
yeah.
I've seen it on TV. That's what
That
you're
happens.
supposed to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. This thing just got off track a little bit, but I was kind of trying to come back to the idea of the alone time. It doesn't take very long for you to be alone and just sort of thinking through the issues that you have and kind of working on yourself, being self-reflective, thinking about planning and doing all of those other kinds of things. But I don't think we get that these days. I don't know. I mean, have you seen TikTok?
Well,
people are not taking long periods of time.
there's that fancy word that we use a lot around here, practicing intentionality, because part of the goal is, just as if there's a pain in your arm that's supposed to be telling you something, if oftentimes symptoms like depression, these sorts of things are telling us that something needs to be addressed, and then the intentionality would be, how do you create space for you to be alone? How do you create space where you can have time to invest in some things that could give you that going on being feeling, like give yourself permission to buy that
A very
Porsche.
expensive automobile. No, I get this, but okay, so
that needs work. You're not buying the actual car. You're just buying it piece by piece and assembling like Lego.
yeah,
It's like a giant
And
Lego.
now, yeah, that's
and you're
one
putting
way
it,
to, that's one way to do
putting
that.
it together,
It's going to take a while. Each piece has
learning
to be,
how to install a transmission. It can't be that tough.
can't be that tough.
on
It's
a
just
Porsche?
bolts. It's just bolts. Yeah. So I would say give up on that idea. All right, number one, and number two, save up your money. If you have to buy it, buy it. But okay, all right. So back to my issue of time being alone. I'm still working on it. So So I'm able to self-reflect. You talking about intentionality, and also in that alone time, I can think about my relationships and how I want them to be better, improved, and somehow connect with people, work through issues that I may have with someone. I can kind of rehearse and think about that. So that sounds like a very good time that focuses on good things. However, I don't think people are doing that. Here's what people are doing. That son of a blah blah blah, and is that's the alone time I think people have.
Well, that they have the capacity to get online and get angry at people they've never met.
It's
So they do have that capacity. But notice how that when we go back to that adage that both avoidance and the need to get better at suffering, it often initially requires a certain amount of suffering to be able to get to being alone, right?
okay. Yeah, I get
Because
that.
oftentimes you can feel a sense of guilt. I probably should be doing something else. You could feel a sense of desperation. This just doesn't feel right. I'm getting anxious. There are all these things that you have to sort of overcome to be able to find yourself in that space. Not
Right.
to mention the fact that, you're going to have to disappoint some folks by saying no and not doing a thing. You're going to have to give yourself permission to be able to take some of these resources that you distribute into the world and distribute them back to yourself, and that can generate conflict. So there are a number of things that have to happen to, so there's and for most of us who are very, very work a lot, not me, I'm lazy. But if you folks who have lots of irons in the fire, juggling lots and lots, we've talked before about character structure. That's often a defensive stance, and you're going to have to, in some ways, confront or feel the thing you're defending against.
Okay, I did. It's taking its toll on me at this point. So I'm really wondering if we're just playing defense all the time. That
Well-
we're trying to avoid pain. Is that what Freud, those guys were talking about? Like, we're just
Well, our Buddhist brothers and sisters would say, and Freud to a degree, that the idea of having a self Freud said that the self or the ego is the callus of your insides rubbing against the outside.
That's crazy.
So,
That's my response.
and the Buddhists would say that the self is born from suffering. That when you are in a non-suffering state, you are egoless. And Freud said that too. He said that it's when the id, the ego, and the superego line up, and then all cease to exist. So it becomes So there's the default mode network is operative when there is an internal or an external pressure that needs to be dealt with. If that's not there, then it goes away. So you, in some ways, have to overcome yourself to be able to be selfless. And that requires dealing with some suffering.
Okay. Well, yeah, I guess if you've listened and watched as much as I have on this particular podcast, you understand that suffering thing is we can't get free of it. We just have to get better at it. Oh, geez. Okay. And I'm just hoping that we have enough time. Well, it seems like if my hypothesis that the person having difficulty being alone is always being chased by something, or well, when does this ego ego superego line up and you become what?
When you had that timeless state, when you lost yourself in some activity,
right,
when you were playing,
right,
the act of creative apperception, the act of playing, you lose a sense of self. I mean, I can think of,
right.
This thing's been hurting for a while, though. It's hurting a lot now because I'm sitting down.
I'm
For some
sorry.
reason, that's when it hurts most. But, and driving, too. I guess because you're sitting when you're driving.
Yeah.
That's a thing.
Yeah, it is. Welcome.
But for me, when I was listening to some music, like I picked up a live from Paris Cure album from 1993 that just got remastered at Barnes and Noble.
Wow.
And
First of all,
and I
that
put
you know that.
and I put it on, and I made it at least 3 songs before I had to come here, and I lost a sense of self. So when you're enjoying a piece of art, when you're enjoying a milkshake, there is the possibility for selflessness.
I'm with that. Okay, and I hope then during those 5 and a half hours of the opera that you've got to got to. You're going to enjoy. You can make some of that happen back in that moment. All right,
There will be nudity, I'm assuming, too.
I
There's
don't think so.
No, literally, I'm serious. There's often nudity in operas.
Oh, well.
Yeah. Sometimes it's
Guess I
accidental,
need to check those.
but that's okay.
Terrible. All right, so all right. So we talked a little bit about Winnicott. He says that you really could you make that statement that this is something that we need to pursue? We need to own this loneliness thing is okay in some ways, and sort of look at it in a different light, maybe, and maybe even practice alone. I mean, you give those ideas to your patients you see that saying, hey, get on a meditation plan, do some things, take care of yourself. I mean, that's kind of common advice, right?
Usually, after I've gotten on them for paying their copays, once they've done that, then we can talk about other things.
Well, certain things need to take.
Yeah.
No, I'm serious. You didn't answer the question. So,
Well, if someone came to me and they were feeling a profound sense of loneliness,
right.
part of the work is before they you have to have a relationship with yourself before you can have a relationship with others, that or at least one that can be fulfilling and sustaining. And so part of the goal is, if someone comes into my office and they're talking about loneliness, in the act of saying that, they've already opened themselves to someone else, me. So we create a space to put that into words.
Right there, co-created right there, right? Okay.
And what we co-create then is naming it and understanding what does the loneliness need from you? What, just like any other pain or concern, there's some wisdom to be learned. And quite often it can be, folks who experience loneliness have often, without even thinking, sabotaged connections that they could have with folks throughout their day.
Oh, that's a very important statement. And the word sabotage seems to fit really well, that we do that to ourselves.
They'll feel as if they're like, some sort of, something that's been locked in a way in a cellar because they're horrible and disgusting to the world. When in fact, there are so many ways in which they unconsciously and reflexively lock themselves away. There are events that happen, there are moments of connection that they avoid because it generates anxiety. There are avoidance on every level that steer them in directions that lead down some, dark corridor where they're going to be by themselves, whatever the case may be. And part of what happens in therapy is you begin to name these moments. If someone says, I went to the gym and there was a woman working out next to me and she started talking to me and I just clammed up and moved to another machine. And so we talk about, what happened there?
Yeah.
Someone who is thirsty, there was a drink of water that someone tried to give you and you refused it. What happened there?
Right.
And we can begin to think about what that means. What are they defending against? What part of them needs to come home in such a way that they can, the next time something like that happens, they can generate the sort of comfort that leads to connection.
I like that a lot because I think that you do find some people who that seems to be sort of a theme in their life a little bit, and then it just accumulates. It reinforces that they are not worthy and they shouldn't have engaged in the conversation, and they tend to avoid it again. So it gets repetitive at some point, becomes a part of their personality to avoid, right? So therapy is then the exploration of what those moments are like, because if you examine an actual moment that the person had, their lived experience, you as a therapist can then kind of come back and say, well, let's explore that a little bit more. What do you think was going on? That's what you were doing, right?
Exactly. Right. There is, there is part of the co-creation, part of the space that you create, which takes us back, and this could be a cool place to sort of close too, because it cuts us full circle. Part of what happens in therapy is you create the capacity for creative apperception with things that are suffering, right? So the person comes into my office and loneliness is a curse, but we create a space where we could play with it together. And that's what happens in co-creation. And so loneliness becomes something that they can begin to have a loving curiosity about. It is no longer, I'm not a lonely, I am not the lonely, which is a noun. We turn it into a verb. What's happening when I'm lonelying? What happens when loneliness comes to visit? And suddenly you've created a space for play, the potential for metaphor, the potential for meaning making. And what began as something inevitable, something calcified, becomes something that has a dynamic that we can begin to do something with, if that makes sense.
No, it does make sense. And you're as you're talking to this person, I'm almost beginning to think, okay, let's say you've had those sessions with this person over a period of time, and then it's like, okay, now we have to move to some sort of change in behavior, some action for you to, as your example, to accept that conversation with the person next to them and engage with it and come out okay with it. So you have to do maybe you can do some practice in therapy, but they have to live that and then actually put it into
and that's where
experience.
there's a whole different theoretical models have something different to say. You could role play, direct or indirect role play. Psychodynamically, you could do either of those things, but often an indirect role play is, well, what would it be like if we hit the rewind button in the place you're in now, that person at the gym turned to you? What might you say? What might you say if you're going to go to the gym on Tuesday? If that person's there, what might you do? And then there's a place for play there too. You can play with the possibilities. You can think about what that might be or not be. But, there are more direct, there are cognitive interventions, affective interventions, behavioral interventions.
Yeah.
There's a host.
And all of those kind of fit a little bit with this scenario. I'm almost thinking of a hypothetical client here with this, and how they would maybe work to this point where they're saying, okay, I am going to speak to this person, and I'll just say hello, and they don't have they know how to get there, and they practice saying it, but they don't know how to get out, like ending the conversation and saying, hey, nice talking with you, see you later. Or they don't, it has to have this ending prepared a little bit. You have to practice that, in other words.
Good, yeah.
Because if you're going to be assertive for the first time, you can come across aggressive. So you got to kind of read the room a little bit.
That's where the play comes in, because some folks may have a hard time with endings, beginnings, both. They may be able to, if they're in the right state of mind, they can use humor to navigate. I could even imagine a scenario where they could say, I'm really bad at ending a conversation. So let me just, and
that battle is already over. Let me just say, if you can say those words, cured. You're out. No more counseling sessions for you. No, I'm just. You can understand if you can get to that point where you can say, hey, there's something.
And that's that
about this
participant observer part that we've talked about. That capacity for reflective function, when you can be both. When you can generate a necessary awareness of what's going on with you, then you have the capacity for, multiple choice responses. You suddenly can see that there's a strategic element in what happens next, and you can coordinate that. So,
well, I think that patient is cured, and I appreciate them, all their attendance and their co-pays, as well as their insurance pay, etc. It's helping us both, it seems, in your case, toward that 9/11 one day. I don't know how to say that, but you're just looking out for yourself. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe you're just trying to become.
What is 9/11 but 911? But
somebody may call 911.
Yeah.
All right, this has been fun. Kind of unusual day.
I'm going to go home.
On the pain threshold.
I'm going to go and take a bucket of morphine. I'm going to.
A bucket. I always say.
I might be a drip.
Okay, on a 1 to 10, what have we got here? I would use. It looks like a 7.5, maybe.
It's
8.
at least a 7.
Okay.
In fact, it hurts enough that I'm nauseous. So that right now.
Oh my God.
That's right. And because I've had to sit like this, now I can feel my neck starting to hurt, and I'm hoping. So. I'm like, and I'm always thinking, how am I going to drive home? but I can do it.
I bet you can. Let's find the resources. I know you can. Visualize it and feel it. All right, enough with your suffering. That's not even funny. Okay. Well, thanks for bringing your suffering in. That's not right either. But hey, this is what we do. It's Scott Therapy. We'll see you next time.